you want to save money on your trading card purchases, we have a promo link over at 50cards.shop. Enter the promo code ATNIGHT to get 5% off your order. Why, hello again, everyone. Welcome to V to Pre-Transitions, the series where we take a clan, show you how to turn it from V Premium into Premium, and that's pretty much it. I'm here with Root Beer from Nexus at Night. What's up, dude?
Hello. How's it going?
Pretty good. So I brought you here to talk about Narukami, A, because of the thing I put at the beginning of the video with the comment, but also because you have some experience with Narukami.
I mean, I used to play it in G, and I'm building it right now. If you want to call that experience, sure. But I have not played Narukami in quite a while. I mean, I think this is going to help some people, because you're going to watch some idiot fumble his way through building Narukami for the first time, so if you just looked at the recent V collection and decided, hey, I want to play Narukami right now, you get the genuine experience.
That's better, I think, than getting somebody who has top tournaments and stuff, and just having them explain it with all their expertise and all that.
So yeah, so the brief for this is supposed to be that we're just taking a V list and converting it into premium, but I decided to take it a step further because I'm in the middle of this process myself anyways, of just building a budget V list from scratch and then converting that into premium. So I'm riffing off of, you can see I made a couple of tweaks for the interest of budget. So I replaced Gauntlet Buster with the previous Vowing Sword, both to activate Vowing Reverse, even though I do think like Vowing Sword is inconsistent, but also because Gauntlet Buster, last time I checked, was kind of expensive, so in the interest of keeping things like cheaper for someone trying to build Narukami right now. Let's see, yeah, so that's old Gauntlet. Gauntlet Buster actually isn't that bad, it's only $10 now, so maybe you could probably go with this list, but yeah, if you go between the two, you can see the list is more or less the same. I just have, like, Vowing Sword instead of Gauntlet Buster to activate Vowing Saber. That is the only major change. So, going over the list, Saber is your main grade 3, so has the powerful ability to be a mini Stunverse with his lock ability. Can give power when things get locked, and then on attack, if you have Vowing either in your soul or on rearguard circle, you can stand something, and if you're damage is 4 or board, you can stand your whole board. And then Descendant is a ride target to go on top of Vowing Reverse. So, because when you would ride this card, he copies whatever your current Vanguard is, if it's an Eradicator. So the idea is, like, second ride, you go into Descendant, you copy all of Vowing Reverse's abilities, so you have the mini Stunverse effect, you have the really strong, like, power gaining or extra binds, and then you have the full board restand alongside Descendant's own restand ability. And then, like I said, I made the budgetary decision to go with Vowing Sword Original, which is just a break ride. When you ride on top of it, you can bind something for every 2 cards in damage. And it has the same power gaining ability as his reverse form, obviously, because this one came first. So I think most people opt not to play this because it's kind of a brick. You really don't want to ride it. But like I said, in the interest of budget, just because Gauntlet Buster is kind of an old card and it's like $10, so some people maybe don't want to go for it.
Right.
Anything else?
I just love, like, even from here, you can see just how many effects Vowing Saber Reverse has. Where, like, that text box takes up, like, almost 2/3 of the picture. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know, right? So, for the rest of the deck, you have Suhail. So this just got reprinted in the recent V collection, so it should be pretty easy to find. Okay. So it gets 5k on an additional circle, and then Vanguard or Rearguard when placed. If you have an Eradicator Vanguard, you can discard a card and bind your opponent's front row and you draw. So it's a pretty solid card. It gets you your binds going. It's free. You do have to discard a card, so sometimes you might be in a position where you can't use it. And then, you know, it's a decent beater, so maxed out copy of this. We'll go over it more in Premium, but one of the nice things about this card is that it does not force the back row into the front. So that's not super relevant for V, but it'll come up later on.
It's
And
nice
then we
that
have-
it doesn't do that.
So it
Okay.
does not pull up the back row, so we'll explain why later. So Spark Raise, so Vanguard, Rearguard, when it hits, you can Soul Blast to draw a card, and then on play, Vanguard only, it gets 5k, and you can look at top 5 for an Eradicator card, put one to hand, and if you added, discard something. So this is just like a way to gain cards, plussing. Martial Arts Dragon, so this was an interesting one. Again, I think more relevant for premium. So on play, Counterblast, Soul Blast, you can bind something, and then like this card, it does not pull up the back row, which will be more relevant in premium. And then when another's unit attack doesn't hit, it gets 5k. So as you get later into the game, this card can get very big. But yeah, I think
so much
mostly
better
just
than
being played for the ability to bind cards. And
Right.
then Zuiten is when an opponent's rearguard is bound during your turn, this unit and all Gauntlet Busters gain 5k. So we're not playing Gauntlet Buster, unlike the Indonesian list, but if you were in that situation, Gauntlet Buster can get very big. Otherwise, Zuitan on its own is pretty big too. Off Vowing Reverse alone, it would just get like 15k. And then we have Demolition Dragon. So just when the battle it attacked or boosted hits, you can draw a card and bind something from your opponent's drop zone. And then if it's on Rearguard Circle, you put it into your soul. So a way to gain cards, a way to bind things, especially if you ride it early on. This is just an Eradicator searcher, so when placed on Van or Rear, look at your top 5, add a card with Eradicator, and then discard a card. So Eradicator lists, I think, opt to play this instead of the Grade 3 searcher, because it still acts in that same way, but it can also search for other things too. So if you just needed like a beater or something. And then Rising Phoenix is just a way to get bodies on the board. You do have a fair number of cards that discard, so this is a good discard target, and once you start binding all of your cards, you can bring it back.
So wait, the Eradicator Searcher guy, that's any grade, just any Eradicator?
Any card with Eradicator in its name.
That's so much better than just like a grade 3, whatever. Yeah.
And then trigger lineup, you're playing 4 heals, 6 draw, 6 crit. So you're playing like draw PGs. In my experience, just kind of testing this by myself, I did find that the deck does need more cards in his hand, which is why I opted for 6 draws, and also matches the lineup here, I believe.
I noticed that in the Indonesian list, they run 1 regular heal instead of 4 heal guardians.
Yeah, so that's just... For V, at least, I think that is like a decision you have to come to yourself, because the regular heals have 5k extra shield, so heal guards are very useful early on because you either get the plus 10k or the crit -2, and it gives you a lot of early game defensive power, especially if you're going second. But once you get past that stage, it just becomes a regular 15k guard. So that is a decision you can arrive at. Also, I believe this has Eradicator in its name, so you can also search it out.
I think so. It's like Worm Toxin Eradicator or something.
Yeah.
I can't remember the...
So that's the problem with this being in Japanese, but that is a decision you can come to, is this card has Eradicator in its name, and it's 20k shield instead of 15 for V.
Yeah, that's something I didn't really think about with Heal Guardians, where there's late game usage in Premium in the form of G Guardians, whereas in V, it's just for that early game use, and then after that, there's a noticeable drop off.
Yeah.
However, did you have anything else to say about V, or did you want to?
No, so that's the list in V.
Yeah.
So I had like 2 deck lists. One is like no big changes to the main deck other than the trigger lineup, and then slapping a G zone on it.
I think, in the spirit of this series, that's what I'd want to show. I think what I'm gonna do is show your super spicy list. I'll put that in the description if you want to go look at it.
I mean, we'll talk about like the changes I made for the one that had changes.
Yeah, this is like half V to pre-transition, half actual deck profile.
Yeah. So this is the extreme budget. We just slapped a G zone on our already existing list. So the main deck is completely unchanged. All of the things are the same except for the premium tax. So You have the stride fodder critical because you need to be striding, and then the over trigger because as long as it's legal, you probably have to play it.
Unfortunately, yes.
So for the G zone, in the interest of making it a budget list, we've had to make a lot of sacrifices. I think if I were to do a full-on G zone, it would probably look a bit different. So first is 4 Exterminate Dragons. So this is the newest stride that came in the last premium collection. It's still fairly accessible right now because it's still relatively new. So when placed on Vanguard Circle, you can Soul Blast 1, draw a card for each open front row your opponent has, and then act once per turn, Counterblast 1. All of your front row get plus 10,000 for each of your opponent's open front row. So that's why cards like Suheil and Martial Arts not pulling things from the back row is important for premium, is because if you're just pulling things up, those are your only real ways of getting rid of cards, because Exterminate Dragon, unlike Stunverse, sticks around and he doesn't remove anything himself. So if you retire their front row and then pull their back row up, then they just have something on their front row again, and Exterminate gets less power.
Yeah, Stunverse is kind of the elephant in the room when it comes to Narukami.
Yeah,
not only
not in this list, it's also not in this list.
I know, but just if someone goes, "I'm interested in Narukami," you think Stunverse, go, yeah, about that, because it's Narukami is one of the few clans in the game where its stride gets out of the way so that you go back to using the grade 3 that you were striding on top of, and it's the only one that does it in main phase.
It's also a board wipe, which I found was somewhat important, because the weakness I found with this budget version of the list is that it has problems like mass removing cards. So Suheil, Martial Arts, maybe if you can get something like Demolition to go off, it can at least get something from the drop zone, but it does have a bit of problem actually binding cards, just because you only have 2 real ways to do it once you start striding. And so, because Stunverse is very expensive and not readily available, there are very few listings for it, we couldn't go into it. So after looking at all of the strides available, we had to go with the 2019 Premium Collection Conquest Fulgurate. So this has an act ability. You can flip a card from G-Zone and discard a card. So you choose the same number of rear guards as face-up cards in your G-Zone, retire and then bind them, and then it gives all units plus 1,000 power for each card in your opponent's bind zone. And then I think if you have 7 or more cards in bind, it gets a drive, and if your opponent has 10 or more, it gets a crit. So this is your too poor to have Stunverse option. It's not that great first stride because it only binds the 1 card early on, so you kind of have to figure out whether Exterminate or Fulgurate is better depending on your situation, or possibly just not striding and going off of Vowing Reverse.
Go the Gurgit route. So in a perfect world, it's just 4 Stunverse, right? That's the...
I don't think you need 4 Stunverse, but at least 2. Probably. 2. So yeah, Fulgurate, once you have things face up, it can be a mass board wipe. It gets pretty good power, and then the extra drive and a crit can be nice for pressuring your opponent. So I think this card does start to pay off late game once you have a lot of cards bound, or you can mass remove your opponent's cards because you already have 2-3 cards face up in the G zone. Yeah. But yeah, this is a bit of a compromise card. And then the other thing was V-Buster, because I was looking at all of the old Vanquisher strides, and this is the only one that's readily available and cheap. Because the other option is V-Max, which nobody plays, and Voltage, which is randomly $20 that also has very few listings.
Strange.
So yeah, V-Buster is just Soul Blast a card, flip up a copy of the same name. Your opponent chooses 1 card from rear guard and drop, binds them, and then if you have more rear guard than your opponent, you can give 3 of your front row units plus 3,000. This is kind of a relic of just pre-reboot when numbers were smaller. Right. And then Thunderstrike 7 at GB3, your front row get 5k, this card gets a critical and a drive, so I think this is like probably an alternative option for just trying to get cards bound. I don't know that you necessarily want to be going into this. I just kind of put it there for G-Zone space.
Right. I'm surprised there's no impede either. Is it because is impede like a pain in the ass to get a hold of now?
Yes.
Or? I see.
Yes, impede was also just like a bit of a pain, so we don't have it. So yeah, we're just going straight up 4 copies of the newest G-Guard because it's the most readily available, and in most cases, it will do what you want. I think most of the time your opponent will be reluctant to like get rid of their own cards for you, so you just get the shield value if you need that. But if they decide to like block it by retiring their own cards, that's probably fine. Oh, sorry, binding their cards, not just retiring. And then Bulwark is for situations where you actually do just want to retire something.
Yeah, or just for the big shield.
Yep.
It's always good. Yeah, once again, all of these deck lists will be in the description, so you can go look at this when it's not tiny.
Impede is like not actually that expensive. Might be a bit of a pain to find just because there aren't that many listings, but it's not that expensive actually. It's only $5.
It's like a one.
So yeah, maybe just cut a bull. Either cut one of these for an impede or cut a bulwark for an impede.
Okay. That's
and then, this is a slightly edited deck list. The G list is the same for just like budgetary reasons, but I made a couple of tweaks. So one is just removing all copies of Descendant, just because I feel like most of the time you're going to be striding anyway, so Descendant isn't that important.
Mm-hmm.
So just cutting Descendant, having these 2 to take advantage, and then having Unruly Dragon is a promo. So when it intercepts, you can counterblast 1. Counterblast an Eradicator card specifically, actually, because this is an old-ass card. And then choose one of your opponent's rear guard that's not attacking or boosting and retire it. So this is a way to disrupt your opponent's turn. Only putting 2 of these in interest of just like deck space. And then I swapped out one of the draw PGs for one of the DPGs. That's a 1-card guard. This is just for like those niche situations where either you got Grade 0 restricted for some reason, or you just really need a 1-card PG.
Yeah, a lot of premium decks will tend to do 3 draw PG and then 1 grade 1 PG for some reason or another, just in case there's that no grade 0 guard. Silent Tom is typically the thing that's cited, but so there's Stunverse in the top right.
Let's just quickly like edit this deck list G-Zone to like where is that? You just leave.
No guys, Phoenix.
And then voltage. I'm gonna go with the old voltage because I like that art better.
It does look nice.
Let's just edit this really quickly. Minus 2 of these. Probably just get rid of V-Buster entirely. So, yeah. This is probably what the deck list would look like if I were to try and optimize this, so... Unfortunately, the addition of Stunverse just kind of makes it so that this deck is inherently not cheap, but the rest of the cards, aside from Stunverse and Voltage, are probably, like, pretty cheap overall. So I don't even know if this list is entirely optimal, necessarily. I think there are probably other things you could be doing with Eradicator still, but I think this should get you, like, decent enough.
Yeah, the idea is to get somebody to, like, dip their toe into premium. The G-Zone is definitely going to be a kick in the nuts, though. And unfortunately, this is just what's going to happen with some clans. Like, when we get to the Paladins, not looking forward to it.
The Paladins are so annoying because, like, all of the old strides either, like, need a Blaster Vanguard or say Brave on them. So there's just, like, no cheap options.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be a good time, but if you're a Narukami fan who, let's say you had all the Eradicator stuff and you want to just smack a G-Zone on it, if you want to shell out the dough, that's probably the best way to do it. Or a way to do it that's, you know, it's not as scary as you think it is. Yeah. There's not all these old cards that are in the main deck that are...
So, like, all things considered, this list is, like, about as cheap as you'll probably get for Eradicators, while also being, like, somewhat playable in premium.
Yeah.
Like, you'll probably do okay in your locals. I don't think you'll be topping any, like, major tournaments anytime soon with this, but, you know, it's workable.
Yeah.
And then, if you can find them, you can, like, work your way up to, like, Stunverse, Voltage, maybe. I don't even know if you necessarily need Voltage, but it's there.
Leave a like, leave a comment. Tell us what you want to see on the next V to Pre transition. Tell us what you think, and we'll see you next time.